Hello and welcome to Footy Furnace. My name's Jules Vallance, joined by 2017 All-Australian Sam Docherty. How are you, Doch?
Jules, good to be here. Yeah, I'm replacing Hurdy, who's off at Gather Round with Eddie's Spectacular over there, so good to be in the seat for the week.
Absolutely, and Geelong superstar Jimmy Bartel. How are you, Jim?
Good, mate. I'm missing out on all the cashies. Of course, Hurdy be running them through the books, just if the ATO's listening, but there'll be a lot of chicken and beef being added. But, of course, we have lots of storylines coming out at Gather Round on the field, but we normally get lots of storylines off the field from Gather Round.
We do, and we won't go on any more about that, Jim, but we'll just say that last year it got me a little bit. Hey, very novel thing here, boys, very novel. We've got 9 games this week, obviously all in Adelaide, so it's good to have every team playing this week, yeah?
Maybe this is the way the AFL planned it. Maybe they thought, well, let's just slow start the start of the year and then we'll get to Gather Round, and Gather Round will be this even bigger spectacular because it's the first week of the year that we've got everyone playing. So exciting because the fixture has been a bugbear of many in the media, Jim.
It has been, because once we get through this period, it feels like about 5 weeks and then we're back into bye rounds. Surely it's going to be changed for next year, but who knows? They might enjoy it more than the average footy punter.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, let's get into it. Thursday night, Adelaide Oval. It is the Adelaide Crows versus your old boys, Doch, the Carlton Blues. Look, how did Carlton deal with no Wiedering, probably no Harry Dean? Thilthorpe plays, probably no Fogarty, but they've still got that Walker factor. It's a bit of a concern for the Blues, yeah?
Yeah, it is. And obviously, Wiedering's, I would say, is arguably Carlton's best player and most important player in many aspects. So to be able to go over there against a pretty potent forward line in terms of Adelaide, and they've been very good at the start of the year. Thilthorpe looks amazing, Jim.
Yeah, and it's a good opportunity, Adelaide, to get a bit of their mojo back, probably from the regular season last year. I know they got slowed down in the finals, and we've seen some slow ball use from the Crows to start the year, but they could probably say, let's get in a bit quicker. Let's look to the second half against the Pies, where I thought they got the balance and the mix right. And often when you have big key forwards, the temptation is to go long, slow down the line. But actually, they want a bit of speed, so they get a nice one-on-one matchup.
Look, Blues have got plenty of problems. It's been spoken about a lot. But for us, when we look at it at Foxcatcher, health is wealth and it's so important. Early in the year, they've played 32 players. It's the most used in the comp, I think, alongside another team, Richmond. How important is stability in a team?
It's incredibly important, the stability, but ultimately you need that 32 to 35 mark in terms of the year. If you're going to play finals and be a contender at the end of the year, you need a list that's going to be able to stump up those numbers, because ultimately there's going to be injuries and form throughout the year. What's happened so far in the year is that instability with poor performance at the moment is creating issues, but ultimately, it's creating opportunities for other guys, whether it's through injury, and we just talked about the tall backs, but Nick Haynes might be back this week, so interesting to see how that plays out.
Adelaide, ball movement, how they've been sort of rebounding off half-back? Yeah,
look, I know they're trying to build the footy up a bit more, and I think they've tried to lean into what the Brisbane Lions have done really well, where you possess the footy up until the logos. But the issue they've had, it's not necessarily their defence, it's where they're actually getting the turnover. So they got this one a little bit higher. So when you force the turnover higher on the Adelaide Oval, Doch, which I know you love the skinny ovals of Adelaide Oval in particular, but if you get that turnover a bit higher, which relies on a lot of pressure from your midfield and your forwards, then you can go quicker because the ground's a bit bigger. You can get the counter-attack. Too much this year. They've been getting that intercept really deep in their backline, and they've been defending really well, but the opposition can trap you in. So it's almost like they're getting an entry on the Crows, but then getting the re-entry, which means they're always playing off the back foot.
And interesting statistically off this one, Carlton's the third worst team defending turnover at the moment at the start of the year, and Adelaide are averaging 52 points. So it's going to be a game of whether the Blues can hold on to the ball, and you alluded to the Brisbane Lions model. The ability to hold on to the ball with their kick mark game, be able to progress it up the field, is going to be a really important part of this game, because ultimately the contest it'll ebb and flow either way, but when the Blues haven't got that going their way, how can they hold on to the ball, get it into their forward half, play that territory game where they can keep it inside 50.
Stoppage scores, interesting one.
Yeah, stoppage scores. We've got Carlton, the best team scoring from stoppage. Obviously a massive strength with their midfield and their toughness in the contest, but they're coming up against Adelaide, who the best team at defending them. So it's going to be a really interesting watch of how much efficiency the Blues can get out of that stoppage and to be able to score going inside 50. If they can't, then that's going to start to play into the turnover game that Adelaide are good at.
Crows, really slow starters this year thus far. I think they're minus 35 in first halves. Blues, we know, are really good. I think they're plus 70.5. Can they stay close into this game after half-time? Because this is the key factor for me. I've looked at the close games. Heard he sort of mentioned this last week. Crows are horrible in close games. So last 20 in close games, 5 wins, 15 losses. It's outrageous. You should be winning about half of them, 11 of 20. They've won 5. Can the Blues stay close enough?
Well, we know the Blues can stay close enough or get in front for the first half. So it's the second half in particular. A lot of those losses have been against some very good sides. I know that that's not an excuse, but they're playing high-quality sides, the Crows, who can keep finding different ways to beat them and make their way through their back six. Their back six is fantastic. And a bit of midfield depth, which eventually gets the Crows. They feel like they're probably one high-end midfielder. Every side would love another high-end midfielder. But they just feel like they're one short, and I think that's why they're trying to get that mix right of when you bring Rankin on, when you bring Rochelle on ball. So how can they get the balance right with their two guys who are so dynamic forward of the footy, but also very good around the ball?
Yeah, definitely. And you bring to the margins, both teams at the moment have had a couple of sketchy ones to start the season. So if it gets to the last quarter, it's going to be... Ultimately what happens is when you do it poorly, you train a lot of it. So both teams will be training a lot of it. So it'll be a great opportunity for both teams to, if it is close in the game, to be able to practice what they've been practicing during the week and see it implemented on game day and see who's learnt more of the start of the season.
Who wins, Doc?
I've got the Crows. The Blues' form there hasn't been great against the Adelaide teams. The only wins against at Adelaide over the last few years have been in gather round against other teams, basically. Yep. So I think their turnover game is just going to be too strong for the Blues.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I've got the Crows. It is a big game. You are launching gather round in your own city. Just a bit too strong for the Blues.
Friday night, Collingwood versus Fremantle. Look, last week, the Pies without Nick Dacos concerns me a little bit. They were nowhere, weren't they? Yeah,
they got beaten inside and outside the contest. And we saw on Footy Furnace on Sunday night, Craig McRae just standing on the bench and going, well, at least can we win something against the Brisbane Lions? Let's own the outside. We know they're well structured behind the footy, but a bit of midfield depth. And, of course, you take Nick Dacos out of any side, who's one of the best players in the game. Wherever you have him ranked, you've still got him in the best handful anyway. So the Pies, Doc, they've got to probably identify what they want to really win the most, whether it's that inside initial first possession, or do you give up a little bit to try and win a little bit more ball on the outside and generate some attacking options?
They're a really interesting team, the Pies. I have a lot of... I commend them a lot because they win in different ways. Yeah. So 1 week they'll win it on the inside, next week they'll win it on the outside, then the next week they'll win it in uncontested marks, then they'll win it in forward pressure. They're probably one of the only teams that, for me, can just change the way they play, and that's ultimately what's got them at the wins early in the season. They beat St Kilda after having 150 marks, and we spoke to Darcy Cameron after the game, and they're so confident in just their ability to be able to play in different ways. So this week will be an interesting one. They're playing against Freo, who are a really, really good contested side, so they're going to have to probably either beat them at the coalface or start to play the outside game.
It's interesting you say they can win different ways, Doc. The constant, I think, with the Pies is they struggle to score. I think they averaged 76 this year. They were only sort of around the 80s last year when they got to the prelim and got deep. Where are the goals going to come from? Yeah,
the goals are an interesting one. They got rid of Mychek's left, and then that's put a lot of pressure on McStay. And remember, he was to see on the screen 7 and 6 goals so far. But ultimately, their scoring woes goes outside of just their forward line. I think it's a whole systematic approach from the team. There's a lot of pressure on those guys. But if you go from just entering inside 50, they're the worst team in the comp at scoring, at getting scores from inside 50s, and they're also the worst team at getting retention inside 50. So the ball's coming out way too easily. So you listen to anyone that's at Collingwood, they pride themselves on forward pressure. That's what builds their game. Yeah. So their inability to be able to get that at the moment is costing them.
It'd be an even bigger issue if they're built or trying to play a way that gets the score to be 110 to 100. But as we know with Collingwood, and we've spoken about it a bit on this show, is they're very comfortable in playing the game 80 to 70. And that's a space that they can live in because we know their late game management of the clock. They know each other. And as Doc highlighted before, they're very comfortable at taking what the game gives them. So it'd be a bigger issue if they're built to be speed and they're not converting or they're not linking up as well inside 50. Yes, they need to improve, but they'd be very comfortable if they win this game 80 points to 60.
Absolutely, and the skinny ground, and as I've mentioned a lot, it's a hard game of footy to get through offensively. It's a really easy ground to defend defensively. It's skinnier, so that systems are able to roll across easier, and you can get pinned in your back half really easily. So that's the way the Pies' records there is outstanding.
It's outrageous. So 5-1 recently when you've sort of got that playing group, but you dig deeper and it's 11-1, so 11 wins, 1 loss. But the key factor with that is, and it's to your point, how they can defend this ground. Only 2 of those games are more than 168 points in total. So just low-scoring games, and they're been able to get it on their tempo. So it's interesting to see if they can do that against the Dockers. Jimmy, you and Hurdy identified this last week that they were going to rip apart, the Adelaide's defence in terms of the Freo. Can they do it again against the Pies?
Yeah, I think they can. With no Darcy Moore playing, or highly unlikely playing. And I think it's just because the amount of options, but they're all such good marks and they work well together. I can't remember I can barely remember any times of the big pony, of course, Voss, Tracy, the big kahuna, Amos, and then when Jackson goes down there, they don't jump into each other. Look, I know they're pretty close here in this contest, but that was Amos, who I felt like last week against the Adelaide Crows got back to some form, where he was about a year ago. Strong on the lead, converting as well. So they've all got different looks, which will stretch, of course, the Pies' undermanned defence. So it'll be asking, Maynard to play a bit bigger and taller, which he does very bravely as well. Howe's got to play a bit bigger. We know he can fly, but you're sort of asking all the Collingwood defenders just to play a bit above their height.
Yeah, and to back that up with numbers, they've got the best inside 50 efficiency at the moment, which goes off the back of their team is really well built at the moment. They've got the grunt, which we're going to go through in terms of contested possession and clearance. They're going really well in that space at the moment. Where they've ticked up is their ball movement, but their forward line is just so cohesive in the way they're doing it, and their method of going inside 50 is outstanding. So in a really good spot, the Freo.
Yeah, so they've always been a pretty good stoppage team. We know that, but they're starting to become more aggressive with the ball, aren't they, Freo? Do you like their style, what they're trying to do? I think they averaged 86 last year. Simplistic way to look at it, but they're 100 this year. They're being more aggressive, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it's built off the right stuff. When I said that before around the contest, their pre-clearance numbers are best in competition. Their post-clearance contested possession numbers are best in the comp as well. So their ability to win contests outside the bubble is what's helping them significantly. Their ball movement off the back of that is becoming more efficient. It seems like they're on the same page. And as we just spoke about, their ability to get inside 50 is outstanding. Yeah,
mids are starting to hit the scoreboard.
Yep.
We're seeing Brayshaw and Sarong hit the scoreboard. You bring Murphy Reid up a little bit closer to the stoppage, good things happen. And Johnson and Erasmus, because they've been good inside the contest, you allow some other players to push forward, like Bolton more often. The forward handball, they've got the experience as well. They trust their defence, so if they need to go back into the old style. But if you have a look at the numbers, speed of ball, they're always about bottom 4. Now they're up near top 4.
Yeah, that's the key factor here. Hey, Jimmy,
yes.
Time now for the Go Big prediction, thanks to Hyundai.
Yes, the Hyundai Go Big prediction for me. We touched on the big forwards as well, but a man who can play in the ruck and push forward. Luke Jackson's getting a lot of the footy as well because he's having some midfield minutes. I got him having 20-plus touches and 2 goals. I think he'll have a good balance, good mix. We know he can take the ruck, but can also play as an inside mid. So 20 and 2 for big Luke Jackson.
Love it. That was the Go Big prediction. Thanks to Hyundai. Do big things with Hyundai. Hey, boys, who wins? Doc?
Freo for me. I just think they're going to be too strong in the contest, and if they get enough looks inside 50, they'll get the Pies done.
Back-to-back at the Adelaide Oval for Freo. I think they'll be just a little bit too strong, but I reckon it'll be a close game.
Ooh,
couple of points.
Interesting. I like that, Jim. Hey, let's get to Norwood Oval, which is a fascinating oval for about not many people to see one hell of a game in terms of Sydney versus Gold Coast. This is a really interesting one because Swans' ball movement, can it expose the Suns?
Well, if it was on a bigger ground, it'd expose it even more.
Yep.
But we know the Gold Coast Suns like to play with a fair bit of speed, and we spoke about forward handball. Any side with Damien Hardwick is a big handball forward side. But this is standing out for the Swans for me, Doc, is their willingness to take it through the middle with their forward handball. This is all between the logos. I know they're playing a very young West Coast side, but this has held true in the early part of the season with the Swans ball movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're more vertical of a team. We see a lot of teams, say, at Hawthorn, that's getting to the expansions of the wings. Sydney try and go straight through the corridor. The one sort of marker on this for the Suns to be able to look at is when they played Hawthorn, Sydney's want to get speed on the ball all the time can also be a disadvantage for them. That if you're able to slow them up and get delay on the ball, they'll still try and handball their way through. And we saw the Hawks sort of sit off them a little bit, and then when Sydney tried to handball, they'd just be able to put that pressure on. So Sydney are living and dying by the sword at the moment, and it's looking great. But that's the watch for this. If the Suns can get enough pressure on the ball, then they can score off the other way.
Who has the better midfield, more explosive midfield, Swans or Suns here, Doc?
I think the Swans do. I just think they're a bit deeper than the Suns, and they've got no Goulden at the moment. They've still got Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney, James Jordan, McInerney in that group. So the one thing that they do differently to a lot of other teams, and it's probably not differently, but their mids kick goals. They kick significant amounts of goals. Heaney kicked 4 on the weekend. Chad Warner's always hitting the scoreboard. McInerney's always hitting the scoreboard, which it's a difference maker because it means that they're playing forward of the ball. They're having damage on the game to go with their forward line they've got as well. I just think that's a bit of a group at the moment.
I reckon if you're going to look post-game, the players will get the most votes from the coaches this week. It will be your inside grunt players. So look at row bottom for the Swans. Look at, say, like a Took Miller, that player who gets first possession, because we know if either side gets it outside, it'd be like running downhill. They'll put the ground on tilt very quickly, because we know if the Swans win it, goodbye Warner, goodbye Heaney. If the Suns get it, goodbye Anderson going that way as well, and all those Suns half forwards who like to get that first handball. So it'll be almost like if you drew a line down the middle, if you can just tip the ball onto your side, they're going to keep it for a lot of the journey and hit the scoreboard.
Do the Swans spread hard enough through the mids, Jimmy?
They spread incredibly hard, going forwards. They probably don't push back because they rely on their defence. I don't think that's cheating. I just think they have a lot of trust in their half-back line and their defensive group, whereas, the Suns are much the same. You look at this, as soon as they get a sniff, off they are to the races. There is one trailing in there. That was Warner that time. So the last one who can't join in sort of just takes a bit of pace off. This time it's Warner. I think it was McInerney on this occasion. He's the last one just trailing up. So they do it with a fair bit of structure.
The Norwood Oval's really interesting here. So it's 165 lengthwise, which is fine, but it's 110 width. Now, you compare that to, say, Cardinia Park, Jimmy, which you knew very well. It's 115. So it's skinnier than that. Does it suit a team better than the other with it being really tight and narrow?
I don't think it suits one team more than the other, because we just highlight they like to play pretty similar ways from on or in and around the contest. It's good for hangers. We've seen some great hangers, because the forwards who like to get a little bit of width with the half forward or the second tall, they run into the grandstand, so we get some long kicks to contest. So it's good. We might see another mark of the year there, because Harry Himmelberg took a couple of hangers there a few years ago. Yeah,
I'm probably leaning a little bit towards the Swans. I just think their ability to go north-south on the ground is probably a little bit better than the Suns at the moment. The Suns are a great team at the moment. They faltered last week, but their half-back line, run, carry, you get the ball in the Lizard's hand, he's running straight at the goals. You've got that midfield that comes in off the back of it, plus their forward handball style. They don't look to the width as much as other teams, as I said before. So I think it probably suits them a little bit better, but I think ultimately the game, on their skinny grounds, it ends up being who can win the contest is inevitably who probably wins the game. I think
it'll be a high-scoring contest, that's for sure. Hey, I'm going to stick with you, Doc, because it's time now for the Happy Traveller, thanks to Fiji Airways, the world's happiest airline.
Yeah, and it's Joel Amati. He's having a brilliant start to the season. I think he's hit the 11 goals, but 43 is the best for him for a season, so I think he topples that this year. But the big difference maker in this year for him is because Charlie Curnow's gone up there, he's been able to take the number one defender in many aspects, and being able to take that second fiddle and play in a very cohesive forward line. And we just highlighted about the ability for the Swans to move the ball. They're going outstanding, so he's going to get plenty of looks and going really well at the moment.
And that was this week's Happy Traveller, thanks to Fiji Airways, the world's happiest airline. Doc, who wins? Swans, Suns?
Oh, I love the Swans. I'm big on them. I have said this to Jimmy a lot. I think they win the flag this year, so I'm going Swans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Swans.
Okay, he goes a double Swans. All right, interesting. Plenty more to come after the break, including Hawks and the Dogs.
Footy Furnace, brought to you by the all-new Alexio EV by Hyundai. Fiji Airways, the happiest way from Australia to the world. Fiji Airways, where happiness takes flight. And Brady Hotels and Apartments, Melbourne CBD accommodation just minutes from Marvel Stadium and the MCG.
Saturday night, Adelaide Oval. It is Hawthorn versus the Western Bulldogs, boys. What kind of game are we going to see here, Doc? Because these are two high-scoring teams. Hawks 107 average, Dogs 109. It's going to be flicking around, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be. They're both in outstanding form. The Dogs with a few injuries at the moment, which hurts the spectator part of it for all of us. But in terms of inside 50 numbers, they're number 2 and 3. So when they're getting it inside their forward 50s, they're really dangerous forward lines. Dogs a little bit more bent towards contest and stoppage, whereas Hawks more of the transition. So there's going to be a bit of a battleground in whether the Hawks can neutralise that inside battle for the Dogs. If they can, then I think on the outside they're a bit better.
Yeah, both sides can counter-attack really well off the half-back line, and we saw the Dogs at Adelaide Oval only a couple of weeks ago. They were really quick and really switched on to get back behind the ball, and then they just counter-punched really quickly through the middle of the ground, the half-back line. And I think we've spoken about it a fair bit here on the Furnace about the Hawks and the way they can make the ground really big. If you give them that first one, which at first you go, oh, that's just a little release mark, but then they can generate some real speed and momentum off the back of it.
There's going to be a bit of dare in this game, both these teams, and as you said, Jim, off half-back is where both teams have got those real high quality kickers, and be able to get in a skinny ground, there's not as much space, but to be able to take those kicks is going to be a crucial part of this game. Because if they live down the line, I don't think that really suits either of them very much.
For sure. You love what the Hawks half forwards are doing, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Good sides have more than one high-quality forward who can come up through the middle of the ground but then hit the scoreboard. And we talk about the Lions, but the Hawks have got a good pack of them, if you will. Gittleman played a bit more wing against the Cats on Easter Monday, but he's certainly one of that group. They've got great football intelligence, football IQ. They've got great discipline. They get all the way to the half-back line, but they stay involved in the passage of play coming through the forward line. Gittleman, Watson, McDonald, Moore, I saw a stat today, pretty much 1 in 2 touches for the Wizard Watson ends up in a score involvement.
Wow.
So talk about impact on the game. That's extraordinary. Dylan Moore is an All-Australian and he just doesn't stop moving. So we mentioned the ability to come back to half-back line. The Hawks have half-backs, but their forwards get involved in the passage of play on the way through to their forward line.
Some interesting points here around this game externally if you're looking to see who's going to win. Hawks off 5 days, so 14 teams in 2025. 10 out of the 14 have missed the market expectation. So they do dip. And the other part to this is the uncontested game's the key here for the Hawks. So they're 18 from 22 if they win the uncontested game. And now they're 2 and 8 if they lose it. So that's the key factor here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As much as we're saying the contested game, if they can hold that, then it's going to go a long way. Their best footy is played in the uncontested. And this is where the skinny ground in some aspects for them, that they like the width. They love playing at the G because they can use the ball in the open side of the field. They can explore through marks and they have different modes. They can go slow, they can kick, they can have high uncontested marks, but they can also go with some flair and dash and overlap. So it might be bending towards that this week just because there's not as much space. So they might have to take a few more risks, play with a bit more dash, play the north-south game. So it'd be a really interesting watch. I tend to believe just they need to neutralise the Dogs. The Dogs, big contest team. They're very good at it. They score well from stoppage. So if they can neutralise that, then they can get the ball on the outside.
Sets up to be an absolute belter. Who are you taking here, Doc?
I'm going to take the Hawks. I just think that a couple of key Dogs injuries will hurt them this week. No English, the double ruck for Hawthorn. If they can just neutralise it, then I think that they'll get the win.
Yeah, pretty much the same reasons why. No English, no Richards. I know the Dogs will be in it up to their eyeballs. Another close one, another thriller, but the Hawks just.
You're going with the Hawks, Jimmy, and you've also got a Hawk for your value player of the week. This just gets momentum. That's all we can see on social media is just people wanting to know who's going to be the value player of the week from you.
Yeah, look, these players should be giving me a call because I'm trying to fatten their contracts up. And I'm not saying they're not paid well, but I think they're a little bit undervalued as far as what their output is. And this gentleman here, he'd be Sam Mitchell's favourite, I reckon, or most of his Hawks teammates. You can throw him forward, he can kick goals, but he's been a star in defence for the Hawks for a long time. He's tough, goes the opposition's best, but he still impacts the game with intercept, kicking the footy really well. And I'm speaking of Blake Hardwick. Welcome to the side, Blake. I'll take a 5% commission when they give you another chubby contract at the end of it. I just think he's a gun. And look, if I was a coach, I'd love him like Sam Mitchell because just plug and play, you put his magnet on the board and you'll know you'll get good things. So we're starting to build out the side.
Yep.
Eventually I might need an interchange as I make some moves, but how good are my back pockets there in Froggy Lester and Blake Hardwick? That's going to be a graveyard for any small to mid-sized forwards and who can play on tools and smalls.
Well, that was this week's best value player thanks to Brady Hotels and Apartments. There's no doubt you're looking for a sling from some of these players too, I think. Jimmy, hey, after break, question time for these two boys.
Now, if you're heading to the footy or exploring Melbourne, Brady Hotels and Apartments is the place to stay.
It is, Jim, offering great value across 4 CBD locations, all within walking distance of the MCG and Marvel Stadium.
Flinders Street and Hardware Lane feature spacious apartment-style stays, while Central Melbourne and Jones Lane put you right in the heart of the action.
Family and friends can enjoy Melbourne their way. Some head to the footy, while others explore the city's best dining, shopping and attractions, all while getting excellent value for their stay.
Brady Hotels and Apartments, the smart, value-packed base for game day and city adventures.
Footy Furnace, proudly presented by PointsBet's new Pull'em for AFL. What's gambling really costing you?
Okay, it's question time here for these two boys. If you want to ask a question, just get involved in any of the 9 platforms and send it through, because that's exactly what Brad from Instagram's done, Doc. Is there any part of you that regrets leaving Brisbane as part of the come home 5?
Tasty question.
The go home 5. No. as much as it'd be nice to have some premiership medallions around my neck, I could have chose a couple other clubs that could happen as well. But I'm very big on sort of owning your journey, and I'm very proud of who I am. So I wouldn't be here without the decisions that I've made. So I loved my time at Carlton and have built my life around that. So no regrets on my end.
Any memorabilia? You five got together and just made a special limited edition package, the Go Home 5?
The funny thing is that there's actually when you get drafted, you do those footy cards, and there's a footy card of me, Billy Longer, and Elliot Yeo there. All of us left at the same time. So I think Brisbane fans would buy it and burn it at the moment.
Righto, Jimmy. From Christie. What is it about Geelong and Hawthorn that always produces such good games of football? You've been part of so many. We showed your point now. It's not just such a famous point anymore after Monday.
It's the second best one. Of course, give up the title to Jack Gunson. What a star he is. And I think that's the key. There's been good players on both sides, and they've been contending for pretty much the bulk of that, what are we up to, 15, 16 years. Yeah. I think good players, good coaches, they embrace the moment, and they also understand that you just can't give up on that one because the game turns on its head really quickly. I think at the start of those series of the Easter Monday, Hawks would get out to about 5 or 6 goals, and look, a lot of them were a flip of the coin, really, to be honest. We came out in front on a number of them, but maybe it's turning Hawthorn's way, of course, with Jack Gunston hitting the post late to get the win.
Absolutely. It was an absolute ripper, that's for sure. Hey, let's get to the rest of these games at Gather Round. We'll start North Melbourne versus Brisbane. Barossa Park, it's a beautiful ground, high-scoring ground. What do we make of this game, boys?
It's an interesting one. I think the Brisbane have just hit their straps again. They sort of started slow like they often have in the last few years, but I think they're going as well as anyone, and their team and list and everything is just gearing towards another flag tilt this year. So it'll be an interesting one ahead. Yeah, well, interesting. You said high-scoring ground. Well, it's high-scoring for Brisbane. They feel like they kick 1,000 points every time they go there. I'm really fascinated to see where North Melbourne's at. Look, I don't think we're expecting them to win, and even your odds there for points bet, but it's a chance for them to test. Like we know Brisbane is the best side in it, and they're scary good. So it's a good real test for North Melbourne to see where they're at.
Let's go to Adelaide Oval Saturday. Essendon versus Melbourne. Geez, Melbourne have been fantastic. The way they've just starting to score. The low possession game, but they're pretty exciting to watch. Yeah, go forward. They're electric at the moment. And you just hear when there's a microphone put in front of anyone from Melbourne, whether new or old, is a little bit more freedom in attack. And you can say good things, and that doesn't mean you bag in the past, because in the past they won a premiership and they were very good under Simon Goodwin. They're just geared differently now under Stephen King. It's just make a decision. Be brave with it. Don't slow the game down. Make an error going forward, and they're embracing that really well. And for Essendon, I want to see the second half Essendon, not the first half, which has been slow out of the blocks like they were against the Bulldogs. They started to get some positional wins. I thought Archer May won some good contests early against the Bulldogs. Zach Merritt's second half was very good. So show us the second half against the Demons. Yeah, and the rhetoric out of Essendon this week is they were very proud of their pressure and defence in the second half of the game. No bigger test at the moment in terms of your pressure and your defence than playing Melbourne. Their ability to go with speed and take risks, it has that element of risk. If you're defensively on, you can turn it over and you can score really well. So it's going to be a great test for them, and probably give us a better look of where the gains have been made in Essendon's game playing against Melbourne this week. Yep. Cats play the Eagles, goes to Norwood, so very similar to Kardinia Park. So the Cats will feel a little bit at home at this joint, won't they, Jimmy? Yeah, they should. And look, they were pretty good against the Hawks. I think we thought both of those sides played really well. It was disappointing for West Coast. We're hoping those 100-point losses are starting to go in the revision mirror, but they did have 10 of the youngest players on the field. And we want West Coast to keep whacking away, keep exposing their younger players. So whether it's Dersma, Reed's still a young player, even though we put a lot of pressure on him. Lindsay, give him some good matchups. Put him on Bailey Smith, put him on Max Holmes, Sean Manor. He'll bounce back from his game. So, look, you're going with the Cats with the experience on their side, but we want to see West Coast take it right up to the Cats. Yeah, West Coast, really poor year last year and didn't lose by 100 points once last year. So it was a big loss for them on the weekend. But I really like what they're doing. I think they're valuing the right stuff. And as you said, there's no bigger test than come up against a really seasoned, well-drilled team in terms of Geelong. So looking forward to this one. I'm hoping that West Coast have had some conversations during the week about that's not us. Yep. And we've seen what they have been over the first few weeks, and I hope they bring that to this week. Barossa hosts, I think, the most inconsistent team in the last 2 years, clearly. GWS, they win when they're supposed to lose, they lose when they're supposed to win, and they play the Tigers. Can the Tigers get close? They can get close.
this is very tongue-firm and cheap. They might have to wear bibs because both sides might be a couple short. Their injury lists are so long. And for Richmond, unfortunately, it's a lot of their younger players getting hurt who we want to see get to that 20, 30 game mark really quickly and play footy together. The Giants will be hoping some of their senior players get back because it's affecting their ball use at the moment. And I'm a bit with Adam Kingsley. Like, injuries are a reason, but I don't think that was why they lost against Collingwood a couple of weeks ago. Their ball use was horrible. There was no orange tsunami. They just whacked it long down the line. But I think Richmond can challenge them in this game. Yeah,
and I worked the Richmond game on the weekend, and what I don't want to see them do is just kick it long down the line. They looked really good when they used the expansions of the MCG, and when they were able to use the ball open side, take a little bit of, it wasn't even risk, but just move it away from the contest. Ultimately, they don't have Tom Lynch, they don't have Nankervis, so kicking the ball long down the line to force it and Jonty fall, it hasn't been the best method for them at the moment. So I think being able to use the ball, get it outside of that contest really worked well for them on the weekend. So I want to see them do that more. And if they live long down the line, I think that it might be an ugly game.
Yeah, Barros has got some width, so that might help him as well. So some width at that ground. Two middle of the teams that are just, I don't know where they're at. Port Adelaide, St Kilda, where do they fit?
Yeah, St Kilda just haven't quite clicked into gear. They've got a mix of young players who are emerging together, but of course all the players that they've brought in, that's got a lot of publicity. I feel like this is a chance for St Kilda to lock it down. Now we're at round 5. They've got some continuity with those guys. They should be starting to, just understand which way a guy rolls out, which way we're trying to move the ball. Port Adelaide, whenever you've got Butters and Horn Francis, they're dangerous as well. But I think the Saints, for me, just because I still have some concerns with some of the defensive stuff with Port Adelaide, even though Aaliyah has been magnificent. I reckon he started the year really well for Port Adelaide, but the Saints for me.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. I think we're going to see a bit of a coaching masterclass from Ross this week. Port are a team that have, their top 4 of players that are really, like Aaliyah with Georgiani's down in the forward line. Then you have Butters and Horn Francis. They're kind of 4 chess pieces you probably want to take off the table. If you take them off the table, then I think the game gets a bit ugly for Port Adelaide. So it'll be an interesting game to see how hard Ross goes, because he's defensive minded at the best of times. So how many of those pieces he tries to take off the table in terms of defensive roles. As you said, St Kilda are a new footy side. They're a lot of change, a lot of off-season change. So they're still working their way through it. They've played well without playing really well, and they've lost a few games. They probably should have won. So in an interesting spot, but an important week. If they're going to play finals, this is one they've just got to get done.
Yeah, beautiful. Outstanding from you, Doch. Outstanding from you, Jimmy. We are done and dusted. 8:30 p.m. Sunday. Jimmy will be back with Hurdy to review everything that happens on Gather Round. Check that out on YouTube. And that was Footy Furnace. Done.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.